Tupac's murder went unsolved for decades, but now some shocking new details are breaking in the case. So today, we're taking a look at the wild story behind what happened to his killers. On September 7th, 1996, the rap game was hit with the tragic news that Tupac had been shot in Las Vegas. He was the hottest rapper in the world at the time, and nobody expected him to be killed at just 25 years old. Right after it went down, all kinds of rumors were flying about what happened. There were stories about him getting into a shootout with the ops and the police killing him during a traffic stop. But after a few days, the real story started to come out. Tupac and Suge Knight were driving down the Vegas Strip when a car pulled up next to him and started letting off shots. Pac got hit 4 times with 2 bullets going into his chest, 1 in the arm and 1 in the thigh. Pac's bodyguard, Frank Alexander, said that he was supposed to be riding with him that night in Suge's whip, but instead, Pac made him drive his girlfriend's car. Yaki Gaddafi and some other death row dudes were in the whip right behind Tupac and Suge. And after the alleged shooting, they tried to chase the killers down but couldn't catch up. Yaki was a rapper from the Bronx. His mom was tight with Pac's mom because they were both in the Black Panther Party. And when Yaki was 16, his mom introduced him to Tupac and they started working together. He was in a crew called Dramacido with his homies Napoleon and Yasmin, and the 3 of them were featured on Tupac's Me Against the World album. Then after Pac got out of prison and signed to Death Row, he brought Yaki with him and put him on 3 tracks on All Eyes on Me. Tupac gave Yaki his first start in the industry, so Yaki was always loyal to him. According to reports, Yaki and the dudes with him let off shots at Pac's killers and busted out their back windshield before they got away. Then less than 2 months after Pac's death, Yaki was found shot in the head in an apartment in New Jersey. After Pac died, there were a lot of rumors about what went down, but most people immediately thought it involved a war between the East and West Coast. But before we dive into what's going on with the guys who killed Pac, we've got to look at how the situation went from rap beef to real life violence. Before Pac went to war with the East Coast, he used to be tight with Biggie Smalls back in the day. They linked up in the studio, and Biggie even crashed on Pac's couch when he was out on the West Coast. But everything changed after Pac got set up for a robbery and was shot 5 times. Right after the shooting went down, Pac got locked up for a sexual assault case, and that's when Diddy allegedly sparked the beef between Pac and Biggie. According to one of Pac's killers, Diddy was the one who put a bag on his head. But before the drama turned deadly, Diddy allegedly started everything just to sell records. Biggie was already becoming one of the hottest rappers in the game, but Diddy knew that if he was beefing with Tupac, it would take everything to another level. While Pac was locked up, Diddy released Biggie's track Who Shot Ya, where he raps, "Who shot ya? Separate the weak from the obsolete. Hard to creep them Brooklyn streets. It's on, nigga. Fuck all that bickering beef. And I switches all that. Cocksucker, G's up. One false move, get switch cheesed up. Clip to tech, respect, I demand it. Slip and break, the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not fuck with nor see Papa. Feel 1,000 deaths when I drop you." Biggie said that he didn't take shots at Pac on the track and that everyone was just running with the story. But Pac thought it was disrespectful for Biggie to drop the track after everything that happened to him and said, "Niggas been talking shit all while I was in jail. Even if it ain't about me, nigga, you should be like, I'm not putting it out because he might think it's about him." Pac was already heated at Diddy and Biggie because they were allegedly at the studio where he was shot in the lobby. And Who Shot Ya definitely didn't help the situation. They probably would have made up eventually, but then Suge Knight came into the picture and kicked off the war that ended with Pac and Biggie both getting killed. While Pac was locked up, Suge Knight visited him in jail and made a deal. Suge would pay his bail and get him out of there if Pac was signed with Death Row Records. Pac agreed, and that's when Suge went to the Source Awards and changed everything. Suge took the stage to accept an award for Soundtrack of the Year. And during his speech, he took shots at Diddy for dancing in his artist videos and told everyone in the industry they should come to his side at Death Row if they didn't want that. Later that night, Diddy went on stage and said there wasn't any beef between the East and West Coast. But then Bad Boy Records performed together, and Diddy kicked the set off by telling everyone, "I live in the East, and I'm gonna die in the East." Pac was riding hard for Suge on the West Coast when he got out of jail, and he's the one who really put the beef in the spotlight. He dropped a diss track called Hit 'Em Up, and that's what allegedly got him killed. On the track, Pac took shots at Biggie and the rest of Bad Boy Records when he raps, "First off, fuck your bitch and the clique you claim. West Side when we ride, come equipped with game. You claim to be a player, but I fucked your wife. We bust on bad boys, niggas fuck for life." Then he took shots at Diddy rapping, "Plus, Puffy trying to see me, weak hearts I rip. Biggie Smalls and Junior Mafia some mark-ass bitches. And guard your rank, cause I'ma slam your ass in the paint. Puffy weaker than the block I'm running through, nigga. And I'm smoking Junior Mafia in front of you, nigga." And at the end of the track, he sent threats at Bad Boy and said, "Fuck Biggie, fuck Bad Boy as a staff, record label, and as a motherfucking crew. And if you want to be down with Bad Boy, then fuck you too. And you niggas can't feel it, we the realest. Fuck 'em, we Bad Boy killers. Everyone knew that this wasn't just rap beef, but nobody expected bodies to start dropping. The first known death in the war was Suge's homie, Big Jake. The Bad Boy and Death Row crews ran into each other in Atlanta after Suge dissed Diddy at the Source Awards, and one of Diddy's homies allegedly murdered Big Jake that night. Diddy didn't just have connections on the East Coast though. He had ties to one of the most notorious Crip sets in Compton called the Southside Crips, and used to hang out with one of the top dudes in the crew and one of Pac's alleged killers, Keefy D. Keefy D came up in Compton and got active in the streets at a young age. His first run-in with the streets happened when Keefy got jumped by some gangsters outside a corner store when he was just 9 years old. A few years later, he started repping the Southside Crips and getting into fights with the Eastside Bloods in Compton. At first, he was just another bottom-level street dude, but when Keefy was in high school, he made some connections that led to him working with one of the most notorious drug lords of all time, Pablo Escobar. Keefy was selling little bags of weed and used to be the plug for his baseball coach. Then one day, his coach pulled up with some cocaine and told Keefy he should flip it. That's when Keefy realized how much more money there was pushing coke instead of weed. He started selling more cocaine and caught a couple cases. It wasn't anything serious at first, but then he got caught up in a wild situation that sent him away for a few years. Keefy was sitting in his whip one day when some ops came through and started putting hands on him. By the time they left, Keefy was dealing with a concussion and broken jaw. He didn't let that stop him from clapping back immediately though. After they left, Keefy went straight to his house and grabbed a rifle and pistol. Then he went sliding on the dudes who busted his jaw. Keefy caught one of them outside their house, and when the op ran inside for cover, Keefy dumped 2 whole clips from his rifle into the crib. He kept creeping through the neighborhood, and when he spotted the main op's brother, he pulled up and chased him down too. Keefy had the chance to kill him on the spot, but he just smacked the dude with his rifle and let the homie stomp him out instead. Keefy was already facing some drug charges when the cops caught up to him, and the cases were all wrapped up together, and Keefy went to prison for 4 years. Going to prison changed everything and sent Keefy deeper into the street life. 13 dudes were murdered inside while he was there, and by the time Keefy got out, the entire drug game had changed. Crack cocaine was everywhere, and the war between the Bloods and Crips was becoming more deadly every day. Keefy went back to selling coke and was moving around 3 to 5 kilos at a time, but he had to track down suppliers all over the city just to get a supply. Keefy knew he needed to switch up how he was moving because dealing with so many plugs can lead to all kinds of drama, but then someone introduced him to a plug that changed everything. Keefy's homie linked him up with a dealer from Colombia, and what Keefy didn't know at the time is that the dealer was one of Pablo Escobar's people. Keefy went from selling 5 kilos at a time to being fronted 100 the first time he worked with the cartel, and that's when he started pushing weight across the country. Keefy didn't just have connections to the cartel though, he also had ties to the rap game through Eazy-E. Eazy-E repped the Kelly Park Compton Crips, who were tight with the Southside set. Keefy and his homies used to cook crack at Eazy's mom's house, but he wasn't the only dude in the industry that Keefy was cool with. After Diddy signed Usher to Bad Boy Records, they were filming a music video and needed a lowrider. So Diddy borrowed one of Keefy's after someone linked him up. Keefy also met Diddy's homie Zip at the time, and he's the one who allegedly supplied the gun that they used to kill Tupac. According to Keefy, Diddy eventually put a mill on Suge and Pac's head, but Keefy and the Southside crew had a personal reason to kill Pac too. A few weeks before the shooting in Vegas, Southside and Death Row had a fight in Compton. A dude from Southside was at the Lakewood Mall when some Death Row members tried to press him. The Southside dude wasn't actually alone though, and when his homies showed up, they put hands on the Death Row crew and snatched a Death Row chain from a dude named Trey. One of the Southside dudes who was at the mall that day was Keefy's nephew, Orlando Anderson, and he's the reason Pac died that night in Vegas. According to people who knew him, Orlando was a massive fan of Tupac, even though they were on different sides. Pac, Suge, and a bunch of other Death Row dudes were in Vegas for a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand, and Orlando allegedly showed up just to see Pac. Trey is the one who got his Death Row chain snatched that day in Lakewood, and when he spotted Orlando in the lobby, he pointed him out to Pac. So Pac walked up to Orlando and started swinging. The rest of the Death Row crew jumped in and started putting hands on Orlando. Then everyone scattered after security ran in to break it up. Pac and Suge went to another hotel before heading to Suge's nightclub, Club 662. And Orlando left the spot and linked up with Keefy and other Southside dudes who were in town that night. According to Keefy, Diddy put $1 million on Tupac and Suge's heads after the track Hit 'Em Up came out, so he already had a motive to take Pac out. But Orlando getting jumped is what really set everything off. After Orlando told Keefy and the crew what happened, they all hopped in a couple whips and went to Club 662 to catch Pac and Suge. They didn't have any guns with them though, so Diddy's homie Zip allegedly gave him a 40 cal Glock he had stashed in one of his whips. The Crips waited at the club for a while, but after Pac and Suge didn't show up, they hit the strip and started looking for him. Keefe and Orlando were in a car together with two other Southside affiliates, Bubble Up and Big Dre. Bubble Up was driving with Keefe in the passenger seat. Then Big Dre was sitting behind Bubble Up, and Orlando was next to him behind Keefe. What's crazy about the situation is that they probably would have never found Pac if it wasn't for some fans who spotted him first. There were some women in the car on the strip who saw Pac and started screaming for him. So Pac leaned out the window, and that's when Keefe noticed him when they were driving down the other side of the strip. Bubble Up hit a U-turn and pulled up next to Suge's whip, and that's when somebody started letting off shots. Keefe claims that he passed the Glock to the back seat because he didn't have a clear shot, but Big Dre did. Big Dre didn't want to take the shot though, so Orlando allegedly grabbed the gun and leaned over him to kill Tupac. After they murdered Pac, the Southside crew went back to Compton. Death Row's head of security at the time was a dude named Reggie Wright Jr., and his dad was a cop in the Compton PD. Reggie's dad already thought Keefe was behind the hit on Tupac, so he pulled up on him in Compton and said Keefe would die if anything happened to his son. Pac didn't die immediately after the shooting, and a detective named Bobby Ladd claims that Orlando was going around bragging about pulling the trigger on him. Then after Pac died a week later, Orlando stopped talking about it. Orlando was the #1 suspect off the jump and was brought in for questioning, but the cops never charged him, and Orlando went on TV to deny having anything to do with Pac's death. Right after Pac died, Zip allegedly came out to Compton and was supposed to deliver the money from Diddy. And while he was there, Diddy allegedly called and asked Keefe, "Was that us?"
You said that Puffy called and said, "Was that us?" And you didn't say nothing.
I didn't say nothing. Yeah, you're right.
Everyone knew that Diddy wasn't cool with Pac and Suge, and there have always been rumors about him being involved with the hit. Even Eminem talks about it on the track Kill Shot and rapped, "Kill Shot, I will not fail. I'm with the doc still. But this idiot's boss pops pills and tells him he's got skills. But, Kells, the day you put out a hits, the day Diddy admits that he put the hit out that got Pac killed." A couple years after Pac died, Orlando ended up getting killed in a totally different situation. Keefe was locked up at the time on drug charges, and Orlando allegedly tried to press some dudes from a set called Corner Pocket who owed him money. Orlando was raised by his grandma from a young age, and the night after she died, he stayed up drinking with one of his homies. They hit the block to grab some food later in the day, and while they were rolling through the neighborhood, Orlando spotted some Corner Pocket dudes and tried to press him about the money. A couple more Corner Pocket affiliates showed up, and that's when Orlando pulled out a gun and started letting off shots. He hit one of them, but the other side started busting back and killed Orlando with a shot to the chest. Orlando's homie grabbed his gun after he hit the ground and shot another Corner Pocket dude, while the rest of them ran off. Orlando wasn't the only one of Pac's killers who died before they could face trial. Big Dre died from a heart attack a few years later, and in 2015, Bubble Up was shot and killed in Compton, so now Keefe D is the last one standing. Keefe had just lost his nephew in the streets and was facing life in prison after the feds busted his drug ring. According to reports, there were over 100 agents working on the case, and a lot of dudes in Keefe's crew started flipping on him. According to Keefe, the feds offered him $500K if he would flip on other dealers, but Keefe turned it down and offered them something else. The full story about the night that Pac died. He told them all about the drama behind the scenes that nobody really knew about, and after he skated on the case, he started airing it out in public too. He wrote a book about his life in the streets and talks about Pac's murder. Then Keefe started doing interviews and never stopped talking about the situation. Being connected to Pac's death gave Keefe a lot of clout and helped him make some money off of the publicity, but it's also why he's finally facing murder charges almost 30 years later. In July 2023, the cops raided Keefe's crib and documents said they were looking for evidence concerning the murder of Tupac Shakur. Then a couple months later, Keefe was finally arrested on murder charges. Keefe has pleaded not guilty and was granted a $750K bail to get out on house arrest until the trial starts, but there's no telling where the situation is going to go next. During the bail meeting, prosecutors in the case submitted audio of Keefe talking to his son Dwayne from behind bars about allegedly putting hits on witnesses. During their conversation, Dwayne told Keefe that he had something to tell him and said, "They talking about it is a green light on us, our side." And Keefe said, "Our side? There's a green light on our side?" Dwayne told him, "Yeah, that is what he had told me." It's not clear who Dwayne was talking about, but he also said the other dude told him, "We was raised in war. We don't give a fuck." The prosecutors are worried that Keefe and his crew are going to start taking people out before they can testify, but Keefe's defense claims that Keefe's actually the one whose life is on the line. According to them, Keefe and Dwayne were talking about a bag being put on Keefe's head, but right now, nobody really knows what's going down behind the scenes. The trial is set to start in June 2024, but news could break any day, so tap in for updates.